Ever come across a place that just feels, well, ancient, where every corner seems to whisper stories from centuries past?
Uh-huh.
That's kind of the vibe when you start looking into Sylhet, a region tucked away in the northeast of Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
I've got some fascinating material here that really dives into its historical roots and the unique cultural identity that's blossomed there.
Indeed. The sources we've looked at, they really show Sylhet as this land that's been a crossroads for different cultures and powers all through history. It's left a truly distinctive mark.
Yeah, definitely.
Our aim today is, well, to try and unearth the most compelling parts of Sylhet's journey for you.
Absolutely. So let's journey back, way back maybe, to the beginnings.
Let's do it.
Sylhet's history, it stretches really far back, doesn't it? Through ancient times, right up to today, seeing all sorts of political and cultural shifts.
Hmm.
What's intriguing right off the bat is how the region itself was known, in ancient and medieval times.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It wasn't always Sylhet. Back then, the names we see are Yuinghakud, Shurahata, or Jinkat, Rushiko.
Hilgutra.
Shurhata or Shukshitra.
Right. And these aren't just old names. They kind of hint at the cultural weight the region already had.
Exactly. Our sources suggest Sylhet was part of some, well, pretty significant ancient kingdoms. We're talking Bengal, Harakela, and Kamarupa.
Right. Think of it like a piece in a bigger regional puzzle.
Connected.
Yeah, connected to these wider powers.
And if you look at the bigger picture, it really suggests that even way back then, Sylhet wasn't some isolated place. It was likely integral to the political, maybe even economic networks of the eastern subcontinent.
That makes sense.
Mm.
And then, empires rise and fall. We see the Chandra, Sena, and David dynasties of Bengal coming into the picture.
Mhm.
And what stands out there from the material is that this era is described as a real hub for both Hindu and Buddhist culture.
Yeah, you can almost picture it, can't you? Different philosophies, different arts kind of flourishing side by side.
Exactly. It really underscores this long history of um, cultural mixing and religious diversity in the area.
It does. It makes you wonder, how exactly did these faiths shape the lives of people there? What did that cultural landscape actually look like on the ground?
Which kind of sets the scene perfectly for a major turning point,
Right,
the arrival of Islam.
right.
Our sources point to 1303 AD,
Mhm.
a really pivotal year with the arrival of Hazrat Shah Jalal.
Yeah,
All
a
right.
huge moment.
Yeah, this wasn't just like a change in who was in charge. It seems to have fundamentally reshaped the region's identity.
Profoundly. His
Yeah.
arrival and the establishment of Islamic traditions that followed had this deep, lasting impact on Sylhet's religious life, its culture,
Hmm.
everything, really. It's such a key thread if you want to understand the region.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit, maybe a few centuries. Sylhet enters the colonial era.
Mm-hmm.
The material we have says it was formally set up as a district in 1772. It's interesting how just drawing administrative lines can shape things, isn't it?
It really is. And initially, under the British, Sylhet was part of the Dhaka division.
Right. But then later, 1874, it gets transferred over to the Assam province.
Why was that, do we know?
Well, these shifts, they often weren't about local preference, usually administrative convenience for the colonial power, maybe strategic interests. And they definitely would have had knock-on effects for, local administration, the economy.
Sure, sure. And then we had a really defining moment in the 20th century, 1947, the partition of India.
Crucial.
And what's interesting about Sylhet is, unlike some places where lines were just drawn on a map, its inclusion in what became East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, was decided by a referendum.
Yeah, that's a powerful point. It shows a degree of local agency at this absolutely critical historical moment.
It really does.
Yeah.
That decision made in 47 undeniably shaped Sylhet's path within the new nation.
No question.
And then much more recently, our sources mentioned the Sylhet division being formed in 1995.
Right. Bringing together the districts we know today, Sylhet itself, Sunamganj, Molvi Bazar, and Habigan.
Kind of consolidating that regional administrative identity within Bangladesh. Exactly. And these structures, they often help foster that sense of regional belonging, coordinate development, things like that.
Okay, so we've kind of walked through the timeline, the major shifts. Now let's dig into what makes Sylhet culturally unique.
Yeah, let's get into the culture.
Our sources talk about Sylheti culture as a subculture of the broader Bengali culture. Now, subculture can sometimes sound a bit dismissive, but that's definitely not the vibe here, is it?
Not at all. It's maybe better to think of it like branches on the same tree. They share the main trunk, the broader Bengali culture, but they have their own distinct leaves, their own flowers.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So while sharing lots with Bengali culture generally, Sylhet has really nurtured its own very distinct identity. And a big part of that is its language, right? And its folk traditions, literature, music.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting, particularly this ongoing discussion about the Sylheti language itself.
Ah, yes, the big linguistic question.
Yeah.
Is it a dialect of Bengali, or is it actually a separate language?
Exactly. Our sources highlight this debate. Some views it as a regional dialect, sure, but many linguists, they point to pretty significant differences.
Like what kind of differences?
Well, in grammar, vocabulary, even pronunciation. They argue these aren't just minor variations. They suggest it could be considered independent.
Hmm.
It's not just about having a different accent, it's deeper, more structural.
Got it. So a unique kind of linguistic fingerprint for the region.
Precisely. That unique sound, those specific words you don't hear as much in other Bengali dialects, they contribute massively to Sylhet's distinct cultural feel.
And that distinctiveness really comes through in things like music and literature. You can't really talk Sylhet without talking about its huge contribution to Bangladesh's folk music scene.
Oh, absolutely not. Names like Hassan Raja, Shah Abdul Karim, they're legendary and they're synonymous with Sylhet.
Their music is incredible.
It really is. Their songs often full of philosophical ideas, spiritual themes. They've traveled way beyond Sylhet. Still incredibly popular all over Bangladesh today. It just shows the artistic depth there.
Yeah, Hisn Raj's ball songs, for example, they give you such a unique insight into the region's spiritual side.
It's timeless stuff, connects with people across generations, across regions.
Okay, so we have the language, the music. Now, let's shift focus a bit to the Sylheti diaspora. Our sources really emphasize this significant community of Sylhetis living overseas, particularly in the UK, right?
Yes, the UK connection is huge. And this global aspect is, well, it's vital to understanding Sylhet today. What's really striking is how dedicated this overseas community is
Dedicated to what specifically?
to preserving their heritage, to keeping their language, their culture, their traditions alive, even when they're thousands of miles from their ancestral home.
How they do that?
Well, think about community centers, language classes for the kids, cultural festivals, music events. It's a very conscious, very active effort to maintain that connection, to pass it on.
That's fascinating. Actively working to keep those cultural roots strong across continents.
Exactly. And our sources suggest this diaspora is actually crucial in introducing Sylheti culture to a wider world. They're like cultural ambassadors in a way.
Creating a kind of living bridge between Sylhet and the rest of the world.
Precisely. Making sure that unique cultural heritage isn't just preserved, but it's also shared and valued internationally.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive toward a close, what are the main things, the key insights we should take away about Sylhet?
Well, I think first, it's clearly a region with this incredibly long, complex history, shaped by so many different rulers, different religions, cultural interaction.
Right, a real melting pot over centuries.
Definitely. Second, it possesses this really strong, distinct cultural identity. You see it most clearly in its unique language, its vibrant arts, especially the music. And third, you've got this extensive global diaspora. And they're not just, out there. They're actively working as this crucial link, preserving and promoting Sylhet's rich heritage all around the world.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how all those historical layers, the shifting powers, the cultural exchanges, how they all come together to forge the unique character of a place like Sylhet.
Yeah, and also about the resilience of cultural identity, how it can travel with people across borders and still thrive, still evolve.
It definitely leaves you with something to mull over long after we finish talking. How history shapes us and how culture endures.